Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on a Sunday night, which is a little bit unusual. I'm live from my kitchen, and Joe's live from his man cave.
Well, it sounds like there's a little reverb on your end, but, or it sounds like you're maybe inside of a barrel, but it's still,
Yeah,
you're coming in very
I,
strong and very loud and clear
yeah,
tonight,
no,
Joe.
I'm in a big wide room, so everything echoes in here.
Good.
That's what that is. So we were having those signal problems last week was because I'm not near my wireless. I forgot, so I moved it into the other room. So tomorrow I will proceed to go get a wireless extender to be able to maybe do it from my room, which I can close off and doesn't sound as much. It doesn't sound like as much of a barrel as you so well describe it.
Yes, yes. Or you could put, or you can buy like maybe 12 dozen eggs and use the egg cartons to line your wall.
Yeah,
And
exactly. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you tonight by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, your complete holiday lighting specialist, and they will meet all your decorating needs, or perhaps you might want to become a holiday decorator. Just give them a call. They're at 631 957 5106 or go to the website liholidaylighting.com. And brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. They've got mulch and they have topsoil and they have gravel and they have everything you need to get your yard in shipshape for the spring season, which is almost upon us. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, just north of the Southern State Parkway, 631 756 1125. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So,
it's nice to see 67 people already watching because um, it is, after all, Golden Globes night. And there was some talk that maybe that was going to impinge upon our viewership, but I still think that before this television extravaganza is over, we will have at least 150 to 200 people coming in by dribs and drabs. But still, I think we're going to have a fairly nice number of people, in spite of the fact that it's a Sunday night.
I accept the award with humility and grace. Somebody please get those people out of here. I can't talk over that racket. Ugh.
Ah,
So, there's a couple of there's one subject matter I do want to touch on because we live in a world where it is so apparent that a lot of folks have kind of slept through science class
oh
in high
yeah,
school. And the latest thing going around now is that the snow that fell in Texas is all fake. Okay, that was it's all government engineered, and they know this because they would take a lighter to a snowball and show that the snow doesn't melt with the heat and that it turns
really.
black. Yeah, and that it also turns black. Uh, I mean, it's got nothing to
You
do
know,
with the chemical reaction of the butane. It's got nothing to do with the fact that the snow doesn't look like it's melting because there's no water dripping because the snow actually absorbs the water in that process. But you know, I'm sorry, I could be wrong on this. But go on.
the sad part about it is that evolution. It's now 50 years past a satire that was done by David Fry. Those of you who don't know who David Fry is, he did an absolutely drop dead impression of Richard Nixon, even better than Rich Little. And he put out a series of records which took, it was a satire on the Nixon administration. One of the bits that they did, Joe, was a conversation between Nixon and Governor Rockefeller. And Nixon was concerned about the fact that John Lindsay, the mayor of New York at that time, was planning to run against him in 1972. So Nixon calls up Rockefeller and says, Rocky, what could you suggest I do to get Lindsay? And Rockefeller says the best thing that you could possibly do is to contract the Cornfeld Company of Trenton, New Jersey. They make artificial snow. This was coming off of the famous Lindsay snowstorm of 1969.
Yes.
And so here's Rockefeller telling Nixon, Cornfeld's a genius. Their snow never melts. They tried everything. They tried to light it, burn it, everything. And all those people, they were up to their earmuffs in snow in Queens, New York. And everybody got a laugh out of that. It was a funny bit. But now what you're telling me is that 50 years later, we have people who may actually believe in the Cornfeld Company, a company that supposedly makes artificial snow that doesn't melt, right?
It's just
So now it's like fact, recreating fiction, so to speak. It's amazing.
I just shake my head at all of this. I just do. You know, we're just two simple weather people here that just enjoy what we do and share it with everybody else. And when I hear some of these just utterly, I mean, it's just you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. Okay, and if anybody's watching this, and you're gonna probably, if anybody is tempted to leave a comment regarding my, our ignorance in what is going on in the real world and all the other conspiracies, don't waste your time, because if you do, I'm gonna say something really sarcastic and nasty in response, and just leave it at that. And Mark K says, is there video of this on YouTube? I'm sure there are. I was reading a news article about this, and apparently there's been videos flying around all over the place with regards to that. So, you know what? Sometimes it just does get cold. And sometimes it does get, and sometimes it snows, and sometimes it gets cold in a big way, and sometimes it snows in a big way, even in
You
Texas.
know,
It's
I,
crazy.
and I mentioned this. I mentioned this about maybe a week or 10 days ago. I have access to back copies or back issues of the New York Times online going back to 1851. And just as a matter of curiosity, I looked over the last 40 years and I typed in the column where it asks, what are you looking for? I typed in Texas, ice, comma, snow, comma, power outages, and I pressed the button. And what did you know? I came up with like 3 or 4 other different cases. In fact, one case, I think it was in 1985, big headline in the New York Times, storm of the century hits Texas with cold, with snow, power outages. This is the worst thing I could ever remember, said one congressman or whatever. And it happened again in 2002, and it happened again in 2011, and it just happened again a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Joe, this is not something that has never happened before. Every so often, at maybe 10 or 15 or 20-year intervals, Texas gets a blast of cold air that pours down straight out of the polar regions. It's what's called northern or Texas northern weather,
right.
and it does produce sharp drops in temperature, ice, snow, and if you're unprepared, it will cause power outages. So it has happened before.
Sure.
It will happen again.
And
I'm sorry.
I was in Louisiana in 1985 in New Orleans, and that's the year that I was there when a record low was set in an all-time record low, getting down into the single digits, and there was ice all over the place.
And you know what? I would have said that. I
Roads.
would have said that. I would have said that on the air. If I were still doing television, I would, and especially the news anchor, and you know as well as anybody, sometimes the news anchor trying to make conversation or trying to generate some activity.
Right, right.
They'll ask you, they'll throw you a question like, "Well, what do you think about this in Texas, Joe?" And I would have said that, and you know what would have gotten that would have gotten me? That would have gotten me an immediate call to come into the news director's office and close the door and say, don't get so. Somebody right now here in the chat board said, easy, Joe Rayo. But it's true.
Yeah,
it's
it is
absolutely true.
It
This
is
is
true.
nothing that has not happened before. It has nothing to do with climate change. It has nothing to do with global warming. It happens in Texas on periodically 10, 15, 20 years. You will get an incredible or an anomalous, let me use that term, an anomalously strong push of cold air, which will lead to frigid
Yeah.
temperatures, snow and ice or whatever. It has happened before. It's going to happen again.
I call them generational events.
Right.
Every 20 or
Exactly.
25 years, you get one of these, really anomalous, $10 word,
Unusual.
unusual event. Yeah, it just and it's a generational thing, and you remember it, and it becomes the focal point. With the hurricanes, we see this all the time. Every area's got their generational storm that everybody will refer back to in terms of the destruction that it caused. It's happened before. It'll happen again. Now, so
They'll
something
stick a
more.
microphone. They'll stick a microphone in front of somebody like they would a hurricane. They'll go up to somebody and they'll say, "What do you think about this?" And that person will say, "Boy, I tell you, I've been listening. I've been living here now 36 years. I can't remember it ever raining as hard as it did, and those winds, I never saw a wind." And they'll go back to the studio or go back to the and edit their package or whatever like that, and they'll have this guy leading off on the package.
Right.
Good, that's it. Make sure you lead with that guy. That's on. Now, it may very well be that in his memory,
And he'll
it was
also,
the word.
well, I will tell you this: the folks from the South, for sure, they remember, okay, and they will tell you the storm name, the date, everything. So it's
Right.
quite possible that the person that you're uh, pointing to here,
Satire.
satiring here, will
Yeah.
finish that conversation by saying it was almost as bad as it was in Hurricane Betsy in 1965. That
Right.
part will get cut out.
We'll
Okay,
never we'll never
you'll
see the
never
light of
hear
it.
that part. Okay.
Yes,
Now
exactly.
to something more important, Jimmy132 says, Joe and Joe, I don't mean to change the subject, but I have your Caracara oranges, and wow, they're really sweet, and I didn't know they were red inside. Yes, indeed, it is Caracara season. They are my favorite oranges, and if you haven't tried them yet, you should, because they are very good. They are tart and sweet at the same time, and they are incredibly juicy. I think they're so much better than navel oranges, which in my view, tend to be very dry and fibrous. Joe, you've had the Caracara per my recommendation, so you know I speak
Yes,
the truth when I tell you that the Caracara orange is a darn good orange.
it is. It's wonderful. It's glorious. But aren't we coming to the end now of Caracara season,
No,
Joe?
it's the
Or
beginning of Caracara season. It starts in
it's the beginning?
January, yeah, and it goes till May.
Okay.
So
So we're right in the middle right now of the season.
feast feast away.
Yes.
Flood Weather says I use Omni for water filters. Is that allowable? Of course, it's allowable. Absolutely allowable. All right, so got a couple of interesting things, and I want to touch upon something, Joe. You've brought this up a couple of times, and I'm going to go straight to the GFS. Just think back to last week, and we're going to look at the upper air. Oftentimes, in a pattern that tends to dominate during a long stretch of time, when that pattern goes away, you've referred to the atmosphere with muscle memory, and it wants to there'll be opportunities for that where the atmosphere will try to go back to that particular pattern. And I thought of you this week and that whole concept, because as we look at the upper air of the GFS, guess what we have? We've got the blocking pattern back again. Kind of came in under the radar, but it indeed did come back, and you'll see it here. Blocking high building from Iceland to southern Greenland into the Davis Strait. We've got lower pressures, and I have here. This is, by the way, the upper air for Friday, so this is for the end of this new week. This is once again, we're setting up with a blocking pattern, but guess what? We're setting up with the blocking pattern here in a way that we had it through the first part of the winter, where the block is too strong, and that means everything gets suppressed too far to the south. So interestingly
Right.
enough, and I'm referring specifically, by the way, to this particular shortwave, because I don't know if you looked at anything yesterday, um, but the models were taking this and attempting to bring it up the East Coast for a coastal snowstorm possibility for next weekend. But one of the
Right.
big right, but one of the big issues here, the big issue here is that we actually have blocking that's too strong. That upper air low, and I'll roll it back just so you can get an idea. This is the cold air that's coming in for later Monday into Tuesday. That upper low forms over Newfoundland and gets almost to 50 and 50, but then it strengthens and actually backs westward. You kind of need it to be where it's showing up here or be a little bit further to the east, but instead it kind of rotates back westward and southward back into New England later this week. And if that happens, well, that short wave that you see in North Texas winds up getting squashed way to the south. And there's one ahead of it too for Wednesday that's going through, and you can see it here. This one here back in Texas for Monday night, that's going to get squashed for the same reason. It comes a little bit further to the north, but it still winds up passing well to our south. So guess what? We got blocking back, but it's too strong.
We actually, for a couple of days, Thursday and Friday, if you looked at the trend, and of course we always say the trend is your friend, Thursday and Friday, the GFS and the European were hinting that with time, that system for late next week and next weekend was actually drawing closer to the coastline. And actually, there was some suggestion that with time, it might actually take a track right up along the eastern seaboard and bring us the possibility for maybe wintry conditions by next weekend. But that is all of a sudden just gone away thanks to the block. And
Right.
another thing, Joe, is that another thing is that we had one shortwave dropping on down through the northeast, and we had another one coming in from the Midwest, and there was like a teleconnection offshore, and that was the thing that was going to spark the potential for storm development and a track along the eastern seaboard for next weekend. And all of a sudden, thanks again to the block, there isn't going to be any teleconnection. That the whole thing is just going to flatten out and
Right.
that's it.
Well,
So
assuming that we don't get it going back to the original solution. Now, I rolled back to yesterday's GFS and you'll see the difference here. The blocking low that formed. Well, you have the building high pressure across Greenland and Iceland. The blocking low goes actually east of Newfoundland here. And instead of dropping back down into New England, it stays up there. So now here comes this vigorous short wave that moves across the southern stream. And then that northern stream energy right up here. So here's your low at 50 and 50. There's an arm that comes around on the west side and drops down, and here it is. You see it right there, attempting to phase with this southern system here. There's your 50-50 low, moves up further northwest into the Davis Strait. That arm comes around, phases with that southern stream system, and tries to lift it up straight to the north. But there's a big difference between what we had showing yesterday, and I'm going to switch back now to the new run. The latest, the last couple of runs have done this, showing instead you have a much stronger upper low that extends southwestward, so that you have basically one long trough that runs down the eastern seaboard. And yeah, this would just suppress everything out to the south. So, I mean, there's nothing that says that it can't go back to the original solution, and I would just keep an eye on it because we're still, a good 5 or 6 days away.
5, 6 days away. Yeah, exactly.
So
You're right.
we've seen that a number of times this winter where the model has something in the long range, then it kind of loses it, and then as we get closer, it's going to bring it back. So I would leave everyone with the idea is that if you think that's going to happen, you're going to need, and we're back to the current run now, you're going to need this profile here along the East Coast to be different and go back to what it showed on Saturday. So instead of having that upper low, rotating around and then dropping back down into New England, you need this to be much further to the east. You need it up in here somewhere to allow for some room for this southern system to, instead going out, offshore and to the east, that it would make the turn and move up the coast. So, it's a lot to ask, but hey, we could be sitting here tomorrow and looking at these models saying, guess what? It's gone back to the original solution. But this is what we're dealing with here. We actually have the block came back. There was not a whole lot there was not much indicating that was going to happen last week. And this is, by the way, this is one of the reasons why I get a little, I get worked up sometimes over when people make these sort of unequivocal statements saying that winter is over, or winter cancel, and all this other, those types of statements. If you want to really look foolish, make unequivocal statements about an entire season, and you're going to find that there's probably a very good chance that nature will embarrass you. It may not do it the next week or the next 2 weeks, but somewhere along the line, you're going to wind up having your forecast getting embarrassed. So I'll
It's
just
a very humbling, as we know, this can be a very humbling business, and you better. And I always laugh when I see these, not all, but a couple of stations in the local market here that do 10-day forecasts, and I said, yeah, like that day 8, 9, and 10 category is going to come out to be true. It never is.
no.
Why show it? But they show it because they show it. I don't know.
By the way, we're coming into this is the last day of February. Tomorrow's March 1st, and that is the start of meteorological spring, the 3 fastest warming months of the year. And spring means severe weather, and we have that tonight. The Storm Prediction Center with a large area of slight risk, and we have a very large tornado watch. This is at 7:50 p.m., folks. So if you're watching this on a replay, please go to weather.gov to check for the latest weather information regarding the status of any kind of severe weather. But this is Tornado Watch 0013, and it is affecting the states of Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And it was issued at 3 o'clock. 3:20 this afternoon, so it's got still a few more hours to run. Oh, and I should also remind you, Rayo, that next Sunday is the day that when you and I tend to go into mourning, and you know why.
Next Sunday?
Next Sunday,
March
first Sunday in March. What do we do on the first Sunday in March?
I don't know. What do we do on the first Sunday in March?
Move the clocks ahead an hour.
No, it's not that. No, Joe, it's not not the first
It's the
Sunday.
Sunday after?
Sunday.
Oh, it's the second Sunday. Okay, so we have 2 weeks before we go into mourning.
Yes.
Why did I think it was the first week? I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I'm going to just punch up, by the way. They just issued a mesoscale discussion here about 20 minutes ago, WPC, talking about most favorite locations for damaging winds in a tornado or two in the next 1 to 2 hours. One area in northern Mississippi, southwestern Tennessee, and another area that probably encompasses Nashville. If that black circle up there if Nashville's not inside that black circle, it's probably very close to it or on the edge of it. And we know they got hit by that big tornado back last year. On their discussion, they said storms have struggled to produce much wind damage up until this point. As the boundary layer cools, the favorable window for damaging winds will diminish within a few hours. The most organized cluster of storms currently north of Memphis, but a sagging outflow boundary from earlier convection continues to rush ahead of this. Convection has likely resulted in it remaining somewhat elevated, limiting the overall threat. Some threat will remain, especially south of this outflow boundary, where the storms will likely be more surface-based and have a better chance of producing damaging winds. So that's based on SPC's latest discussion. So the watch continues. Looks like we're about to get a break here, I think, in the rain, because this first area here in the northeast from eastern Pennsylvania and offshore to the east has weakened fairly quickly. So it looks like we're getting a break here in the northeast for a while, until this second area, Joe, on the radar, on the latest beautiful UCAR US radar that we use now. Thank you, UCAR. But you can see all the heavy precip that's down from West Virginia, and that squall, some heavy storms now just popping up there in northern Tennessee, northwestern Tennessee. You can kind of see on the last couple of frames a few brighter red echoes showing up not too far from Nashville, by the way, and extending down into central Arkansas. So that whole area, we're not going to get the severe weather here, but that whole area is moving along to the northeast, and will be bringing another round of rain or showers later tonight and into the first part of tomorrow. Unless you think
Well,
differently.
no, well, on the FOOS, the North American model, the NAM FOOS, I did notice that early tomorrow, lifted indices were getting down to like +3 or +4. Now that's modest. I mean, if you're thinking about thunderstorm or convection activity, that's not going to get you much. It might get you some rumbles of thunder, but still, it does apparently get low enough to possibly put the possibility, slight as it will be, for thundery weather in our general vicinity tomorrow, early in the day. And then, of course, later tomorrow and tomorrow evening, we get into a whole different type of air mass for a little while. So much so, Joe, that the National Weather Service has issued. And I think, actually, in looking at all the information, I think we're actually going to fall a bit short of the criteria of what the entire area is under a wind advisory for winds gusting up to 50 miles an hour. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get that high. I would say 40 is probably more like it.
Yeah, I
But
kind
here's
of
going to
thought it
kind of
would
get.
be 30 to at most 40 from looking at the stuff late this afternoon. I really didn't think it was
I,
going to get that high.
I think they're just covering themselves. They being the forecasters at the national, and they may be right. So a few spots may get to 50 or higher, but I really don't think that the winds are going to be. I was thinking actually 2 3 days ago, boy, the way things are looking, we may actually see 50 or even 60-mile-per-hour gusts, but the numbers just don't seem to add up for anything like that, at least in
Yeah.
my humble opinion.
Yeah,
So,
so
but
sometimes,
it is going to get windy and blustery here tomorrow night.
yeah, March, being that it's the month of the strengthening sun, sometimes you know, you can get uh, some daytime heating in there and a lot of mixing goes on, and you wind up with some pretty gusty winds. But I don't know. I just didn't. To me, I did not think it was going to be. I'm kind of surprised actually that they did the wind advisory, to tell you the God's honest truth.
I think a couple of places. I'm not sure if it was. I think it may have been Albany. In their statements, they're saying winds gusting up to 45. New York City is 50, and maybe I'm thinking that maybe if you look behind the scenes, maybe just maybe New York City and Albany got together and they said, "Hey, look, we want to put up an advisory. I know you guys probably don't, but we're going to say 50 just to cover ourselves." And then Albany probably said, "All right, well, if you can do that, we'll put an advisory on this. We'll put it up to 45." I don't know how these advisories, what the criteria is for one zone versus another. It is going to get windy tomorrow in the evening hours for a while. I'm just not certain whether or not it's going to be of the type that may bring down trees, power line, damaging winds, that sort of thing. But it is going to get rather blustery and gusty out there tomorrow night, along with the influx of, for a short while, much colder weather.
I just pulled up the homepage of the Weather Service, so you can see the whole area where we're dealing with all the severe weather tonight. By the way, we also did mention that there is a severe thunderstorm watch now up for parts of northeast Texas and northwest Louisiana, southernmost Arkansas, and then of course in the yellow you see the tornado watch. All that red you're seeing is flash flood warnings that
Wait
are
a
up.
minute. Hold on.
What?
Hold on. I just saw, I'm looking at the chat board here, and somebody on the chat board, Joe, is referring to us as two old farts.
Well, I would
Mr.
disagree.
Ruben,
I'll tell you what.
Mr.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mr. Ruben Fairchild. First time I've seen that name on the chat
Oh,
board.
he was on
Why do
there.
these
No,
old,
he's been on there. He was on there on Friday. And by the way, don't take the comment down, moderators. Leave it up there. Go on.
why do these old farts hate daylight saving time? And now my wife chimes in and tells him, Ruben, the Joes dislike daylight saving time because the forecast maps come in an hour later. And yeah, that's absolutely true.
I
If you
would
want to
I
get,
would I would take issue with the old farts uh, comment. I would say that yeah, we may be old.
yes,
The fart part
well,
I don't have a problem with. Oh,
Well, I
good
saw that. I
Lord.
said, "Whoa, wait a minute." I'm still trying to get over the fact, Joe. I was thinking about an event in my life a couple of days ago, and I stopped short for a moment and said, "Holy mackerel, that was 23 years ago." And I said to myself, initially, I said, "How many years ago is that? That 5, 10 years ago? 23." I said, where are the years going?" I guess when you get up to as old as we do, as we are,
It goes
um,
faster and
it's hard to,
faster and faster. Every
it's hard to accept.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flash flood watches up, by the way, in that whole band from the lower Mississippi Valley, right through the Tennessee Valley, the lower Ohio Valley, into West Virginia, Western Virginia. We also, like you see, they got the wind advisory, but by the way, Joe, there's a hole in the wind advisory. I don't know if you picked up on this. Now, I don't wait.
Right over Dutchess County.
Yeah, is that a hole
Yeah.
there? They left it out. A couple of counties
I
there.
don't understand that. How do you have wind advisories across the entire state of Connecticut, the entire lower Hudson Valley? You have a wind advisory continuing up into Sullivan County and part of western Ulster County, but for eastern Ulster and all of Dutchess, there apparently is no advisory. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean that is sort of weird. I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I know
It's
sometimes
for
sometimes when we get into this time of year where you get these elevation driven snows, that you wind up with nothing being forecast east of the Hudson, and then sometimes you'll see big snow amounts forecast west of the Hudson. That sort of makes sense to me, but I'm kind of, yeah, I don't know. I think that's sort of strange
That's
that they did that.
All of Dutchess County has, they're not in a wind advisory. All of Dutchess, Columbia County, which is north of Dutchess County, eastern sections of Ulster County. I, you know what I ought to do? I ought to just go and look at the technical discussion, the forecaster discussion from Albany, and see if they have any reason for doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just looking at what Mount Holly has. So Mount Holly has it up for northeastern PA. And let me just check because they do have an overriding flood advisory. They also have the wind
well, that would
advisory
be
up for the southern counties of New Jersey. See, sometimes, if they've got some special weather statement or something, it would override on the graphic what's actually going on, for tomorrow. But I double checked on the Dutchess County one. There's no wind advisory there, but there are wind advisories up for counties south of 195 in New Jersey as well. I don't know how far south they go.
what Albany is saying is after close coordination with neighboring forecast offices, a wind advisory was issued where the highest confidence was with respect to those higher magnitudes. Additional adjustments may be needed with future updates. So I suppose that for places like Columbia County or for the eastern part of uh, Ulster or for Dutchess County, maybe the criteria is a bit different than surrounding counties in terms of what you would tag as an advisory criteria.
Okay,
Um,
that
and again, and here's where you get into trouble and confuse the public because this is what we ran into. This is what the Upton, the New York City office, ran into about 10 days ago in terms of snow accumulation. Why are you forecasting the same amount for one place?
and
You
not for
have
the
an
other.
advisory here,
Right,
but you don't have an advisory there.
right. I know. Yeah, it does get a little tricky sometimes. Here's your surface map. By the way, that's not a shabby looking warm sector either. I'm looking down in Tennessee. I'm looking in Alabama, in Mississippi. Temperatures up some places up into the low 80s with dew points in the mid to upper 60s. Actually, Joe, not too far from me. Now, I made it here to about, I think, 72 or 3. Now, I'm 2,200 feet up in North Georgia, so, I have elevation here. But to the south, Atlanta made it close to 80 today, and you got a number of stations in Georgia getting up even into the middle 80s down in southern Georgia. So, this is warm tropical air. And go back into Texas, look at these areas, right? Just think about the fact that less than 2 weeks ago, I mean, these folks were struggling with temperatures in the teens and even the single digits. And here we are with temperatures up into the low 80s and dew points up into the 70s. My God, the shock to the system must be incredible to see that radical change like that.
Yeah, it's well, we mentioned a few days ago, our friend down in Houston, Addison Green, was out and about with a big smile on his face because where he was, the temperature in Houston was like 73. And this was the same guy who, less than a few days earlier, was getting buckets of water out of the community pool so that he could toss them into
Right.
his toilet to get his toilet to
I
run because it was so.
I assume he has now been able to take a bath.
I
He got
assume,
his water.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
He didn't have to go to Fred. He didn't have to go to Fred's gasoline station like Norton did.
yes. Meanwhile, the high sitting east of New England uh, managed to at least wedge in a little cold air this morning because a lot of folks had ice pellets when the precip arrived. I noticed, by the way, when I woke up this morning and I was looking at temperatures, it got pretty cold last night uh, in uh, in eastern PA to southern New England. And I was toying in my mind. I was thinking, okay, well, that's probably down. You know, the boundary is shot, so it can't possibly be any snow out of this. But I didn't. I didn't anticipate to get so many reports. I mean, they were just a few. This leak didn't last that long, did it?
Well, up here, no, it didn't last. We had here in Putnam Valley, we had an initial shot of sleet or ice, but that didn't last very long. Also, in the pre-dawn hours of yesterday morning, say around 4 a.m., I got up and looked outside on my deck, and my deck was totally covered with snow. It couldn't have been more than a quarter of an inch, though. And I looked out. I went to the other window, looking out of my blacktop driveway. There was nothing there. So we did get accumulating snow, but only on the coldest surfaces yesterday morning. And then when I got up again, and by then it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, looked out the window, all that snow that was on the deck was gone. So you had to be up early. You got your cheap thrill early yesterday morning if you were a snow lover, and it didn't last very long to begin with.
Right. So we've got a low on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a 98 low with the trailing cold front. And as we look up into Canada, the air in Canada, by the way, has been, and I noted this on my video that I did for my Patreon members yesterday, it's been brutally cold. I mean, nighttime lows have been down around minus 30, minus 40 in Western Canada, and that's a cold high that's coming down. These were temperatures at 5 o'clock at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I mean, we're talking double digit below zeros, and remember they're getting some sun. You know, they're getting a fair amount of sunlight now. So this is very cold air that's coming down, and it's going to be up there for much of this week. We're going to see some more of that cold air later this week, when assuming what happens out in over eastern Canada is correct, that another cold high is going to build southward, and that's going to keep temperatures pretty much subdued for much of this week. Rain precip wise, by the way, from this evening through a week from today, we're looking so 7 days, but much of this is front end loaded here over our neck of the woods. So they're basically calling for another quarter to a half an inch during the overnight and into tomorrow. You can see the heavier precip amounts that extend down across the south because they have a couple of more waves to work through. So we've got an area of 3 inch plus rains from northeast Texas into western Mississippi. Also, up to several inches of rain possible in southern Georgia, and some of that's going to wind up being, I'm sure, convective as the next couple of short waves move across the southern stream. Not much precip in the lakes or in the plains or the northern Rockies. The southern Rockies, on the other hand, getting some precip, as well as the southwest, much of California, and then it increases somewhat as you move up into the Pacific Northwest. And as far as, I don't know, Joe, I was looking around and looking at the models today. I don't really see it unless we get a surprise in the next couple of days and the model goes back to more of a, has the upper low in Canada a little bit further east and allows for some room for something to come up the coast. I really don't see too much going on here this week. Certainly nothing major. And the bigger story will be this, you have this cold shot of air coming down for Monday night into Tuesday. That goes out, and then you get a reinforcement. A wave goes out to the south off the southeast coast on Wednesday, so we could say goodbye to that. Here comes another big high building down with colder air from eastern Canada for Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday. The 540 thickness, by the way, which is where we usually like to look at the rain snow line, gets all the way down into southern Georgia by Saturday with the second high push. But you could see the system coming into the southwest, how it gets suppressed. Look at that. It just gets squashed down into the Gulf of Mexico. You get a low that forms. It's even more suppressed on this run than the other runs. We got a low forming east of the Bahamas that runs out southeast of Bermuda. That's how suppressed this is. And then after that, could we wind up with a warm up for a few days going into the week of? So let's see. This is the week of March 8th. With a ridge off the east coast, it looks like it might try to get warm, if this is correct, for a couple of days during that week.
Yeah, yeah, and the what we've been experiencing here over the last week or so, since that last snow surprise on at least up here on Monday of last week, we've been seeing the melting occur the way it should, not going away all at once and possibly leading to flooding. It has been slow. It has been, and I would say subtle, but it's nice now that I can actually see, Joe, my roof. I
Yeah,
haven't seen my roof in almost a month. I finally got rid of all of that snow up on top, and still a lot of snow on the lawn. But even there, you could tell the places where the snow is disappearing first are the places that usually have a lot of moisture associated with it. In the springtime, the last places that dry out because the grass is still rather wet. I can't run a tractor mower over that area because it'll get muddy or whatever like that. But I've noticed the places that have a lot of moisture just below the surface are the first places that tend to melt off all that snow on the lawn, both in the front and also in the back. So it's getting there. And it does not look like we're going to be, unless we have a surprise. It doesn't look like we're going to be seeing any significant snowfall around here, save maybe for the isolated squall maybe tomorrow night. Looks like we're not going to see very much in the way of snow for a number of days to come. And somebody, I forgot who was on the chat board, said, we got to get Joe Rayo his 1.4 inches for Central
yeah,
Park.
I agree. I'm looking at the GFS upper air in the longer range, and it does build. It just try to build a ridge from the western Gulf of Mexico to off the mid-Atlantic coast. So we do get some ridging here in the east, and most of the troughing is in the west. In fact, the ridge gets rather strong around the weekend of March 13th, 14th, and then just keeps dropping troughs in the west. The pattern looks incredibly progressive. It's about as non-blocky as you can get, if that's correct. I want to just take a quick look at the European, because the European and the GFS have been completely at odds with each other for the last several days on a number of fronts. So 144, 168, 192, which takes us to March 7th. And I'm just trying to see if this matches up with the European. There's more amplitude on the GFS. It wants to much deeper trough in the west than the European has. European actually cuts off a low off California and has ridging up in northwest Canada. So has a slightly colder look over Canada. The GFS doesn't quite have that same idea. So it's not 100% certain whether that's going to happen. I'm just going to bring up the teleconnections just for laughs. So let's start with the Arctic Oscillation. And yeah, interestingly, how going into this week, Joe, we were actually almost 2 standard deviations positive. Look at the long stretch that the Arctic Oscillation went negative around December 1st and stayed negative until about February 16th. And of course, that big spike up, that's when we wound up with the big snow, and continued to rise, but now it's crashing and actually going negative for a short time early this week. Now, I noted this yesterday that this was something to pay attention to, the crashing of the AO, and then it bounces right back up right after that. And of course, the crashing of the Arctic Oscillation on the Saturday runs uh, took place through all of this week and into next weekend before it would level off and bounce. But you can see the bounce is actually occurring a lot sooner. Uh, and that sort of explains what's going on to an extent. It explains what's happening with the setup aloft in southeastern Canada. The NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which was not really showing all that much, it goes down to the neutral line and even gets a little bit negative this week. And then it kind of bounces up and goes positive, not by a lot. It's sort of weekly positive going into the middle part of the month of March. And the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, we'll bring that one up and see what that has to say. That actually, Joe, is spiking positive to the end of this week, goes neutral, and then goes negative in and around the middle part of the month. So uh, I was looking at the teleconnections yesterday, and I thought they were supportive with the possibility that something could happen this coming weekend. But again, the models have seemed to have backed off on that. If we come back tomorrow, or certainly I would think if we're not seeing any changes between now and say early Wednesday, we can pretty much put it to bed that nothing of consequence is going to happen.
I saw on the chat board just a little while ago that there is apparently a tornado warning now in Tennessee that was issued. I think it was at 6:47 Central Daylight Time. That's about actually it's a half an hour ago, but
Yeah, I
shows
mean,
shows you how far back on the chat. I'm looking for it on the
uh,
chat board,
you know what?
but there is activity going.
I'm going to bring up Tornado HQ. Tornado. I think that was the site I used to use. Hang on a second, Joe.
And thank you for the chairman who hit super chats. He said, "Hi, weather family. At my COVID hospital vaccine job tonight, my boss gave me my final schedule Sunday through Thursday night through mid June. I said what I said. What about the Joe and Joe show?" And he said, "Huh."
Yeah, I got lightning. Hold on, I'll bring it back up on the screen here. I got lightningmaps.org, and we're seeing a lot of activity there in the zone that would be considered the watch area. I got to find that site that I had. That here's a close-up view. Getting some new strikes there showing up in parts of Arkansas. You can see the circles in the reds, and also I'm going to look up in the Nashville area, see what's going on there.
Hurricane
Because
Mills, Joe.
what's that?
Hurricane Mills. That's, I guess, a town in Tennessee. Great name for a town, by the way. Uh, reporting, I believe they're reporting a tornado or reported a tornado.
All right, I want to see if I can. I'm trying to remember because I haven't used it in so long. I thought it was Tornado HQ. I got to remember how to spell it. Let's see if this is it. That it was Tornado HQ. Okay, so let's go to the live map here. Here's their live severe weather map, and you can see where that tornado warning is done. They do have what looks like 5 working severe thunderstorm warnings that are going on. And again, this is at 8:18 Eastern time, folks. So just remember that. You need to check weather.gov. Yeah, there were 4 severe. So correction, there were 4 as of 8:18, 7:18 Central Time. There are 4 working severe thunderstorm warnings up, but I don't see any tornado warnings at the moment. Just these 4 that are going on. So just to let everybody know, this is also. This is a new experimental live updating severe weather page. If you experience problems, you can use the regular versions of the tornado tracker. So let's try that. This is tornadohq.com, by the way, for those of you who are interested in this. It's actually a pretty good site because they update very quickly here. Yeah, there's all these expired tornado. There's the one for Hurricane Mills, expired. Also one near Vivian, Tennessee. Is that in, let's see, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. So right near that, the Arklatex, as they call it, a severe thunderstorm. This was earlier capable near Vivian, or 17 miles south of Atlanta, not Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm thinking that's whoever, either Atlanta, Texas, Atlanta, Arkansas, or Atlanta, Louisiana. I'm not sure. But anyway, you can see that they actually list all these are all expired tornado warnings. So there were a number of them going on this afternoon. Even some down in Florida. Oh no, I'm sorry. I got to look at the days. Pay attention, Joe. 13 days ago when they had the severe weather. This is when we had our snowstorm. They were having severe weather in Florida. Yeah, so as far as today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tornado warnings that are up here from earlier today. So always make sure, folks, check timestamps. I always say that, and I need to practice what I preach more than than I have lately. But I definitely caught that mistake earlier enough. So we're back up full screen, you and I. Oh, 105 likes. Thank you so much. We were off over 100. Not too bad for a Sunday evening. And the chairman, yes, thank you, Scott. And please stay safe with what you're doing, all the COVID work that he's been doing. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So we congratulate him for that and give him big kudos. We were set to do a cooking Jeopardy with Mrs. Rayo, but I'm not sure whether, because we moved the show to Sunday night. So is she not in a position to do the show tonight?
She's actually only a few feet outside of the door, dear. Hello. Yes, Mr. C is asking about Briller Jeopardy. If you're in line for this.
Sure.
Oh, okay. All right, give me a moment. I gotta find the questions. Let me see where they are. I gotta pull up.
You can sit here.
I could pull up Messenger. All right, give me a moment here to pull up Messenger and find those questions, because he did send them to me back a number of days ago, so it might take me a moment here.
He's been waiting for this since the beginning of the month. I think we're supposed to do this on that Sunday, January 31st.
All right, I have the ones for tomorrow, Joe, and they have a TV angle, so we're going to have fun with that one. All right, give me a moment. Hang on here. Let's see. Searching. Yeah, I'm rolling back. I'm back to Tuesday because he sent them to me a second time. So they're in here somewhere. All right, now we're almost back to the snowstorm. So I got to load some more. Let's see.
He's watching. He may actually send it to you right now.
Oh, wait. I think I got it. I think. Yeah, here we go. I got him. All right. How are you, Renata?
I'm just fine.
Okay. Are you ready?
Shoot.
Okay. And the theme, of course, for those of you who don't watch on Sundays, is cooking. Renata's been giving me the questions, but this time around we're gonna give them to you. So the first question is: what year did the Food Network start? 1983, 1987, 1993, 1997.
I would have to say, I'm going to guess 93.
Boom! Ding! You are correct.
Okay.
Question 2. Paula Deen's restaurant is called Lady and Sons. True or false?
Lady and Son.
Lady and Sons. I think that's true. Savannah, Georgia, isn't it?
Yep. Ding. So that's 2 for you. Question 3. What cooking substance does Paula Deen use largely? Salt, vinegar, sugar, butter.
Butter.
If you had only 10 days to live and could choose what food you could have, Julia Child said it would be butter. I totally support that concept. Question 4. Bobby Flay hosts a show called Hot Off the Blank. Is it hot off the grill, hot off the stove, hot off the skillet, or hot off the fryer?
It's got to be hot off the grill.
Oh, you're 4
He's
for
a
4.
big griller.
4 for 4. Question 5. Where was Wolfgang Puck born? Was he born in Germany, Belgium, Austria, or Belarus?
Austria.
That is correct. 5 for 5. Number 6. Which is the common slang term for a conical strainer? Is it a pyramid? Is it china cap? Is it pasta strainer? Or is it cone drain?
No, it's China cap.
That's correct. 6 for 6. Number 7. Which of the following countries is the origin of curry? China, Brazil, India, Egypt.
China, Brazil, India. India.
That is correct. Question 8. Too bad this
I'm
is.
just sitting here like I'm sitting here like one of these cardboard cutouts.
You should be sitting there, Joe, thinking, why isn't this the $99,000 answer?
$1,000 question.
Right. Question 8. On the popular show Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, which I was actually watching the other day, how many restaurants were featured in the state of New York? Okay. Is the answer 7, 37, 77, or 777?
I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and say 37.
I'm going to say Stephen Foster.
And you are correct. No, it wasn't Ed. It was Ed Norton. Question 8 for 8. Question 9. Which of the following fish is actually farm raised? Okay. Swordfish, catfish, tuna, mahi-mahi.
Say that again. Swordfish?
Swordfish, catfish, tuna, mahi-mahi.
I'm gonna.
Now I'm just gonna say before you answer.
An educated guess is catfish.
Okay,
Anyway,
and the answer is catfish. So you are correct. 9 for 9. This is one of those questions where I would have just kind of like, thrown out swordfish because for Christ's sake, you're gonna raise a swordfish in a farm? I don't think so. Nor are you gonna raise a tuna in the farm. So it's either catfish or mahi-mahi.
Right.
So yeah.
It's an educated guess.
Yes, exactly. What is the reason behind the name pound cake? Is it A, contains equal parts of flour, sugar, butter, and eggs? Is it B, causes people to gain a pound? Is it C, first made in London, hence the word pound because it cost £1 for a piece? Or D, due to the pounding process of the dough?
No, it's because of the equal amounts that
of flour, sugar, butter, and eggs. Question, you are 10 for 10. Number 11, what country is the largest?
How many questions you gonna throw at her?
I'm on a roll.
I'm gonna be here all night.
No, this is the last question, and then we have a bonus question if she gets them all right. What country is the largest exporter of beef? Is it A, Russia, B, Turkey, C, Brazil, D, Hungary?
Largest exporter of beef.
Yes.
I didn't think it was any of those. Give them to me again.
Okay. A, Russia. B, Turkey. C, Brazil. D, Hungary.
It's either Russia or Brazil.
Now, okay, I would just say you can
Brazil?
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
Brazil.
And that is correct. I was going to say, if you think about it, since
Too cold.
yeah, it's too
in
cold.
Russia.
Exactly. Too cold, two nations too small, which leaves Brazil. Okay, so here's the bonus question. What is the chairman's favorite type of pound cake? Is it chocolate cake, red velvet cake, fruit cake, cheesecake?
Oh, anybody who loves cake has got to love cheesecake.
Yes, but his answer is his favorite is red velvet.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Okay.
So you did superb.
Thank you.
You know, well, I mean, you know,
That was a great question.
you made that butter pecan cake for me, and it was just amazing. It was one of the and I'm not a cake lover at all. That thing was amazing. That was just insane. How many?
And
How much
You
butter?
can't send that through the mail.
Renata? Do you remember how much butter was in that cake?
No, it was just your standard amount. It was 2 sticks in the recipe. I believe.
Really? I thought that was a
Yeah.
lot more.
And well, I don't know what kind. I followed the recipe to a T.
Right.
And it might have been some also in the frosting.
Yes.
But
Well, anyway,
yeah.
one piece was 800 calories. It was just incredible. God, that was just. And again, I'm not a cake eater. I'm from a family of bakers, and I did not get I don't have a sweet tooth. I did not get the baking gene, I guess. So it's definitely a high compliment coming from me. That cake was insane. Oh, it was insane. All right, so you know what? We did a good hour on a Sunday night, so I think it's time we say goodbye.
how many people did we have at our peak, Joe?
Uh,
At least
I
157.
yeah, I won't know till after we go off the air.
Because Madame over here said we weren't going to have very many tonight because of the Golden Globes. And I said, you don't know.
It's a Sunday night.
But you don't, I said, you don't know our Joe and Joe audience. So.
No, they are loyal to a T, and we love them dearly. And
We
the
got
Joe
118 here
and the Joe and Joe show brought to you tonight by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini at 162 North Ocean. I'm sorry, I always say North Ocean because I lived near North Ocean. So let me repeat that. Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. Plan ahead for the next holiday season, or if you want to become a holiday decorator, give them a call, 631-957-5106. And the website is liholidaylighting.com, not lightning, but lighting. I'm a weather guy and I go right to lightning. And also, getting ready for spring is Omni True Value Hardware. They've got mulch, topsoil, gravel, sand, whatever you need. Give them a ring at 631-756-1125, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. And their website is omnitruevalue.com. So we had a fun Sunday night. Say goodbye to Renata for me, Joseph. And
through the coop here.
thank you very much for those of you, the 120 likes, for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you again. Joe and I love it when we go over 100. And also thanks to the chairman hitting Super Chat tonight. And again, Scott, please stay safe through all of this. And Joe and I will see everybody at the regular time tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern.
We'll be here.
Nighty. We'll be here. I got wind of it. Good night.